Hello, Charlie TCG here, and welcome back to my channel. Today, let's talk about the expanded format. You guys love it when I talk about the expanded format, and it's been a while since I've done a huge breakdown to see what's exactly happening in the expanded format. So today, I'm going to break down exactly what decks are performing well in Japan and America, and the results have been happening on some online tournaments as well as some in-person tournaments that I've gathered over the likes of Twitter and also on the likes of Limitless TCG platform. One really fun thing about, before I start the video, all four of these cards here have in fact made a top 4 or higher placement. So it's nice to see Darkrai X return to get some love, as it's one of my favorite cards ever printed. And Alakazam EX finally see some good recognition in the expanded format, because that Dimension Hand attack can do some crazy things over the expanded format. So let's jump in to see exactly what decks are winning. So to no surprise, Lugia and Control are still on top over in Japan's tournament. Lugia has access to Double Dragon, which means that these huge tag team dragon Pokemon become absolutely huge powerhouse to deal with. And Control has access to the likes of Ditto and multiple really interesting cards from 151, which make it really difficult to go around that Wobbuffet stall, which has definitely been a plague to the expanded format. Rhydon, however, it's been incredible in the expanded format over there in America. Using that tandem unit is very good because you have access to so many different and good electric Pokemon. Thinking about likes, you still get back to Vikavolt V, and more specifically, you also have the likes of Tapu Koko GX as well, which is incredibly powerful with a huge amount of damage in the late game as well as electro power. Creativity is definitely being rewarded with having huge extensive knowledge of the card pool. The card pool now is exceeding over 12 years, which is the same thing goes all the way back to Black and White, which was released in 2011. So players that really understand and know exactly some of these niche cards that got released back then has really been rewarded by adding them to some of the newer archetypes like Rhydon and Lugia. Definitely still the top decks are Lugia, Maroon, Control, Shadow Rider, and Palkia. I put Maroon a little bit higher than Control because Maroon's been incredible over there here in America, but winning multiple events that's happening. So that's why I put it a bit higher up, because purely I want to get a more worldwide view about how the expanded format is developing. So right now I want to break down exactly some of the lists that have been performing quite well, give my thoughts and feelings and where I think they're going to expand in the expanded format. So I hope you enjoyed this part right now of the video. So let's start off with Maroon. Now, Maroon is by far one of my favorite cards right now. The tandem unit has access to a huge array of different cards. Getting that Maroon, which makes your opponent active Pokemon asleep, is a very good Maroon to kind of have into it. Although it does have 50 HP, but there aren't too much bench sniping right now in the expanded format. Like I mentioned, Tapu Koko and Tapu Koko Prism Star are really good inclusions in this style deck, and Vikavolt to get that item lock capability. Having Regieleki VMAX as well as also electric power means your lightning Pokemon do huge amount of damage, which I'm very, very much here for. But I also love the Regieleki with the Sonar attack, so you can utilize some of your very powerful trainer cards. Honestly, this Maroon list is very straightforward, very clean, and incredibly aggressive. What's one thing I absolutely love about this deck here, having that reusability with likes of Fluffy, making sure you don't use around likes of Max Elixir and do huge amount of item lock in case you don't lose this huge much item lock. So I really like that about where Maroon EX is kind of going with it. But now I want to talk to you about Alakazam. Yes, this Alakazam list, which we've seen have some success. Well, I say success, a lot of people are talking about it online right now in the 151 format. Japan have had it for a lot longer. They got this back in June. It's right October for us, so it's really weird that we've got a huge little break right now after getting this card, but it's seen a huge success over there in Japan by actually winning the event. By having Wobbuffet in the active spot, you still have access to your likes of the Bench Barrier Mew, the Mew EX from 151, as well as also the Tapu Lele. So I really like how this deck has really got some synergizing to really energy accelerate over to your Alakazam, like Fog Crystal and Raihan, and having that Wobbuffet to really slow down your opponent at the start by slowing down any of their abilities they have in play. Ditto as well is a really good attack Pokemon. If you start with it, you can swap it instantly to your Wobbuffet and keep your bench really focused purely on having those Abras in there and really slowing down your opponent from getting anything set up. Whereas the sports lineup really works and capable into that one, and the Chaotic Swell is an incredible good stadium card to have in play. Pretty much making sure that no one can really have a stadium card constantly out there, like so there's been no Silent Labs. So that's one thing I really like about how this Alakazam list is really kind of thought and theory about it, and having that Lily's Pokédoll is a fun inclusion as well to kind of like give it any active spot and your opponent doesn't take any prizes. Another list that's really interesting as well is this Reg Drago. Basically, Reg Drago pretty much has seen some success, but it hasn't seen a huge amount of success over in its standard format, but Expanded has a plethora of so many different really strong GXs which can really be utilized. You can see here it also uses that Mega Rayquaza EX, which has 300 damage, where you get to discard 2 energies to it. But if you have the likes of Double Dragon Energy and Gardenia's Vega, you can instantly accelerate constant amount of energies to Reg Drago VMAX, so you can constantly be reutilizing this 300 damage and it's going to constantly get these big one-hit KOs constantly. I think this deck is very interesting, and one thing I love about it is its Futu. You might look and go, what exactly does it do? Well, it protects any of your basic energies from being discarded from any item cards or supporters. No cheeky Team Flare grunts or crushing hammers or anything like that, so your Reg Drago can constantly keep all the energies it requires with it. I honestly think this is a really unique, a really interesting way about how Reg Drago is kind of working with it. I love having access to Dialga GX's attack as well to gain an extra turn. I love how you have the Noivern, GX really and EX as well to really limit what your opponent can play as well, and Geraldon V to pretty much go through anything, and Gudra to reduce any damage done to your Pokemon. I think this is a really fun and really unique way of how you play Reg Drago, and really excited to see how it's developing in the expanded format. Another one I want to look at is this control list. Now, one thing you'll obviously notice here, it just has Boba Fett and one Ditto. Like I mentioned before, Ditto is that 5th Boba Fett. If it's in the X spot, you just discard it and add another Boba Fett. I really love how this is working with this one. Obviously, it does fall to likes of the Team Flare Whistle or potentially Echoing Horn, so they can bring this Ditto back to really break the lock. But it's a really good inclusion to really slow down any of these really key attacking decks which kind of go around there, slowing down my Lucas as much as possible. Constantly crushing hammers and enhanced hammer, Team Flare Grunt, Team Skull Grunt, Primarina, Fabbert, so many really strong supporter cards and energy denial, which I absolutely love about this deck. And I really like having the counter catcher because you're constantly going to be behind in prizes because you're not taking any prizes. So it's a really good inclusion for this list. Now you might also notice there's a stadium card here which we do not have access to. And this is very much like Tropical Beach to a sense. This is what you get from getting at least 30 points from playing in your locals in Japan. I really wish we had that in our sort of system as well. But I believe the translation is you may draw 2 cards, and if you do, your turn ends. Or it's like you discard. There is an effect where your turn ends and you get to draw 2 cards. I did do some research into this one, but this was I based it off the more recently ones, which are very similar to Sun and Moon one. This was 2019, which I couldn't actually find the regular translation form, but I believe that is the case. So I think that's a really good inclusion into this style deck here. Having that loose to me, so you're constantly using any of your supporters, put them back in your hand. So I generally think really interesting the way how Control is working. Very different to a Control list have been happening over there in America. One thing I like about this, it does play the Alolan Persian GX. Now it has a really good ability which limits your opponent from not damage. It takes any damage from the likes of Ultra Beast or Tag Team. So having the likes of Booshake and this as well, put it in the active spot, you can absolutely slow down the likes of the get impacted by any effects by the tag teams. More importantly, likes of Pikarom, which may see some play, but specifically the Giratina Garchomp and the Guzzlord Naganadel, they'll have no effect to this Pokemon, which I generally absolutely love for this in a control archetype. I like the capturing Pokepuff, which gets to look at your opponent's hand and put down a basic Pokemon, slowing down them by benching down their Tapu Lele, their Crobats, their Dedennes. So I really love that effect in the style deck here. It uses that control aspect as well, the capture energy, so you can get any of your Pokemon you have in play, their Chaotic Swell to bump any of the Stadium cards. There's some really good disruptive supporters as well, and teammates to get any of the item cards or cards you might potentially need in the future. Very, very good control as well. I like having the block Snorlax as well, Boba Fett as well, and the Giraffari, which is pretty much going to be the only real attack you're going to be using by making sure that you can loss those specific cards in your opponent's discard pile. Really interesting, unique way for Control to really evolve into it. Now, you might have seen this Raichu list kind of like float around because people were thinking about it, and it is honestly insane, this archetype is, have access to both counter energy as well as also reversal energy. So what exactly is the function of this deck? You might see here, it has a 1-2 line of Raichu. How on earth does this work? Well, you pretty much try and draw for your entire deck, and you see Electro GX's attack, ability to explode, go behind in prizes. You want to use at least 2 of them, where you can only use 2 of them, to make sure you're behind in prizes by a lot. But its ability lets you search your deck for, I believe it's 5 energies, and attach them to your Pokemon any way you like. Raichu has an attack which does 30 damage to one of your opponent's Pokemon, times the amount of energies you discard, and you can do 30 damage to any of your opponent's Pokemon. So your idea is, if you have discard 4 reversal energies and 4 counter energies, and maybe even some unit energies as well, you're dealing huge amount of damage, which could potentially be taking between 1 to all of your prize cards in one sweep. This is definitely one of those lists which is a go bust or go home. The Gengar Mimikyu, I think, is quite nice. So you can kind of use that if you're going second, making sure your opponent can't play anything, so you can get into the Alolan Raichu as well. By only having access to 1 Pikachu, you're very liable to that as well. You play the canceling clone to make sure you go through the likes of Mew, the Manaphy's, or any of the bench barriers that kind of go around the field. This is a really fun and unique deck. If you want to play a fun, crazy expanded deck, this is definitely one of them. It did get a top 4 over in Japan, and I think that's so fun to see that actually did have some hype to it. I did see some people play with it in our expanded format, but our expanded format right now on live is from Sun and Moon onwards. Is like gets rid, I believe, of X and Y and black and white, so it's not a full expanded format. But it's really fun, really crazy, really utilizing likes of reversal energy, and I'm here for that, and I absolutely love it. Now, our top 4 archetypes done well is that Palkia list. Yes, I've talked so much about Palkia, and I honestly absolutely adore this archetype over in the expanded format. I think it's incredibly powerful, and I pretty much have nearly all these cards so I can build my own version, which I'm really, really excited that potentially I might start building an expanded deck and start playing as well. I like having the Karen in there to really make sure you're constantly shuffling in any of your basic Pokemon, or any of your Pokemon you have in both your discard part and your opponent's discard. Really slowing down, I don't believe there could be any United Wings or Mad Party or anything like that, or Night March, but it's a really good counter card for that sort of option as well. Like having the Arvin as well in this one to get any of your item cards or tool cards you might potentially, searching out that muscle band, which is absolutely key for these style of matchup as well. And the rest of it is very, very simple stuff which I've covered before, but honestly, it's incredibly powerful. Having the referee to really counter any of the any control archetypes by getting rid of some of their key supporters, putting their lost zone, having that dark cry, so making sure the opponent can't play anything in next turn is honestly very, very good to really help with your setup, making sure that their Lugias can't really do anything as well, which is really, really strong. Having a Starmie and She Empowers is really good secondary attackers in the late game because you have access to Aqua Patch and Melanie, and Raihan, so you can have huge amount of energies constantly around the board. That's why I think Palkia is definitely up there being one of the strongest archetypes right now, purely because it also has access to Skyfield as well. And to finish off, let's look at Dark Box. Yes, Darkrai is back, baby. Well, kind of in a way here. It's like similar to how we have the Dark Box or we have right now in the format with Darkrai and V-Star, but you use the likes of the Tag Team one, which is on the Greninja and Zoroark, do 30 plus 30 for each of the Dark energies you have in play. Now, this was also very, very good to Turbo Darkrai in the sort of the standard era back in 2016 to 2018. But this one is even better, I feel like, because not only do you have access to Dark Patch as well as also Max Elixir, you have access to the Darkrai and GX with the ability, which if it's in your discard pile, you may put it in play and attach to Dark Energies you have in there. And you have Moltres V as well, which lets you, once per turn, attach a Darkness Energy from your discard pile to this Pokemon. And you also have likes of Hypnotoxic Laser, so you can deal some more damage. And this Mew, which you can use as a free retreat option, but more specifically, this ability which makes you copy any of your basic Pokemon on your bench as its attack. So instead of sending out a very, very fragile tag team, which is weak to fighting, which can absolutely one bang very, very easily, you can send out a single price Pokemon, which I honestly think is absolutely so creative. And I honestly love this in this style deck here, dealing these huge amount of damage as well. This did get a top 4 placement, so there is some merit to it. But honestly, I don't know if it's exactly the best thing for this deck right now, the format as well, but having that Darkrai X to give yourself free retreat really warms my heart a bit to see that Darkrai has still seen some love nearly 12 years after it first got printed. Well, it's about 11 years since it got printed. So I honestly love it as a thing. And having that Skyfall means access, so you can pretty much play every single one of these cards and Pokemon you have in play, and having that pseudo to really limit your opponent's bench size. Honestly, I think this deck is incredibly strong, incredibly powerful, potentially could see some return of Darkrai, Dark Box potentially. Doing 30 plus 30 is still not enough to really big one hit everything, but having that Mew can really force your opponent to really use that Guzma, really use that boss's orders in the late game. So, will this format start to change? Is Lugia and Control too strong? I generally think yes. I think Lugia is only going to get new and more tools as it kind of progresses. Let's see exactly how Iron Hands will dominate the format. If you think about it, it is a lightning type Pokemon, and there is Miraidon, which is searchable through that. You have Max Elixir as well as Electric Generator, and also you have Electro Power and Regieleki VMAX. So potentially we could be going to an Iron Hands format in Expander format, getting potentially, if you KO a tag team, 4 prize cards, which is insane to think about, which may see a sort of return here. I hope it doesn't, but be sure that as soon as Iron Hands is released at the end of the month, start of next month for us, I will definitely be covering how it's really made an impact to the expanded format. Can creativity really return back to expanded format? I think this video definitely covered that creativity is still there. I didn't cover Lugia because the list hasn't really changed too much, but we saw some really unique takes about how Palkia is trying to develop, how we've seen the Control really sort of creative, really utilizing the huge card pool, but more specifically, likes of the Darkrai deck, the Dark Box, as well as also Alakazam deck and Reg Drago, really creative archetypes, which I've genuinely really love about him. And last question I want to ask you, should you start playing Expander format? it doesn't have any return to any of the big standard tournaments, but it could retool one day in smaller tournaments. A lot of people have been wanting there to be maybe an expanded and regionals happening, or potentially even just some cups or challenges. But definitely, I think you should get expanded deck. If you love it, 100% create one of your expanded archetypes. For me, it's definitely Palkia. Palkia is honestly incredibly powerful right now, and also relatively a bit cheap because a lot of the cards you probably still have in your bulk somewhere. So I definitely think if it ever returns, I would love it. If it does, be scared that Lugia is going to absolutely skyrocket in price, but I don't think it ever is going to return one day. But I think it's always fun to really talk about it. It's not a dead format. People keep talking about it. And if you guys still absolutely love this content, I'm still producing lots more expanded fun. So hope you enjoyed this video. I'm going to be back for another expanded recap, probably sometime next month, talking to you exactly where Iron Hands really fits into the metagame. I'm really excited to see how it really is portrayed. So I hope you enjoyed this video. If you have, be sure to like and subscribe. Comment down below your favorite expanded archetype right now, and I will see you guys later. Bye for now.